All right, let's play digital detective for a bit. We're going to dive into a mystery that happens to pretty much all of us every single day. How in the world do websites seem to know who you are even when you're not logged in?
You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? You go back to a store you browsed last week, and boom, they're the exact items you were looking at. Or a news site starts recommending articles that are a little too perfect. It's kind of creepy, but it's not magic. It's technology. So let's peel back the curtain and see how it's done.
Okay, so our very first piece of evidence is the one you've probably heard of, the most famous one. Think of them as tiny little breadcrumbs that your browser leaves behind on the trail.
Yep, we're talking about cookies. And no, not the chocolate chip kind, unfortunately. A web cookie is really just a simple, tiny text file. When you visit a website, its server basically gives your browser this little file and says, hey, hold on to this. It's like a digital name tag that just says, hey, I've seen this browser before.
And these little name tags are actually incredibly useful. They're the reason you're not constantly logging back into your favorite sites. They remember you, like the site in Spanish, or that you had a pair of shoes in your shopping cart. But they also have a detective side. They can track your visits and clicks to help the site understand how you're using it.
All right, on to the next clue. Now this one's different because it's not something stored on your computer. It's actually the address you're broadcasting to the world every single time you go online. Every single device that's connected to the internet, your phone, your laptop, everything, has what's called an IP, or Internet Protocol Address. The easiest way to think about it is like the return address on a physical letter. Just by showing up to a website, you're automatically handing over this address. I mean, how else would the website know where to send its data back to?
Now, let's be clear, an IP address isn't going to give away your home address or anything that specific, but it does give some solid clues, like your country, your city, and who your internet provider is. It's just another layer of information that helps a website get a sense of who's visiting.
And this brings us to our third clue. And honestly, this is where it gets really fascinating. This technique is so much more sophisticated, way harder to spot. It doesn't leave anything behind on your computer. It just observes. It's called browser fingerprinting. So remember how a cookie is a file that gets placed on your device? Well, fingerprinting is the total opposite. It works by collecting information about your device. A website server can ask your browser a whole bunch of questions about itself, and the combination of those answers creates a profile that is surprisingly unique. And just look at all the different things a website can gather. Now, by themselves, these things are pretty generic, right? A ton of people use the same web browser or have the same screen resolution. But when you start combining them, your specific browser version on your specific operating system with all the unique fonts you have installed, plus your time zone, and that specific list of browser extensions you have, well, the chances of finding someone else with that exact same combo, it drops to almost zero. And that right there is the big aha moment. It's not one single piece of information, it's the combination of all these boring generic settings that creates a digital fingerprint as distinct and identifiable as a real one. It lets a website pick your device out of a crowd of millions. So let's just make the key difference super clear. You can go into your browser settings right now and clear your cookies. It's a feature built in to give you some privacy. But you can't clear your fingerprint because there's nothing actually stored on your computer to delete. That's what makes it so powerful and so persistent. It works even when you think you're being careful and deleting your cookies. But wait, the Digital Detective's Toolkit has a few more gadgets. There's something called local storage, which is basically a cookie on steroids. It lets websites save a lot more data right in your browser. And then you've got tracking pixels. These are sneaky. They're tiny, totally invisible images, sometimes literally just 1 pixel by 1 pixel, hidden on a web page. The second your browser loads that pixel, it pings a server, letting it know you've seen the page. And this isn't just some theory, by the way. There's a well-known research project called Panopticlick that proved just how effective this is. Their study showed that the huge majority of browsers out there had a fingerprint so unique they could be identified instantly in the massive ocean of the internet. It's surprisingly accurate. So we've kind of cracked how websites recognize you, which, in any investigation, leads to the next big question. Why? What's the motive for all this tracking in the first place? Well, the reasons are mostly about business, as you might expect. Websites want to see which pages are popular and where people get stuck. That's analytics. They want to give you a custom experience, showing you stuff you'll actually care about. That's personalization. And the big one, of course, is advertising. Then on the flip side, it's also for security. Recognizing your device can help your bank, for instance, spot if someone else is trying to log in as you. Okay, so we've reviewed all the evidence. We've got the cookies, the IP address, that incredibly unique digital fingerprint. I think it's time to reach a verdict on how this whole thing really works.
It's not just one thing. It's the combination of all these techniques working together in the background. They create this digital shadow, a persistent profile of your device that follows you across the web, even without knowing your name. And that shadow is what allows websites to roll out that invisible welcome mat, recognizing you the moment you arrive. And that kind of leaves us with a pretty big question to chew on. Now that you know you're leaving a unique, identifiable trail nearly everywhere you go online, what does privacy on the internet really mean to you? Something to think about next time a website seems to know you just a little too well. Thanks for joining the investigation.
We are about to reach 100 subscribers. Please like, share, and subscribe to complete the target.